Hello and welcome to the Because I Love You podcast. We back with another solo episode, and today we're going in on how to build trust with yourself. Building trust with yourself is the ultimate power move. It is the biggest flex that you can have in this lifetime. One of them. Okay, I'll put it up in the top 5, maybe top 3. But when you can honestly say that you trust yourself to get yourself anywhere you want in life, you don't feel like you are tied to anyone giving you opportunities or getting you where you want to be in life, you win. You fully win. When I was in my 20s, I sound so ancient. Luckily, I learned pretty early on how important it was to have trust in myself. And I think I really had to go through the exercise of doing that when I decided to become self-employed and be a full-time content creator. It definitely wasn't an overnight thing. And I don't want any of you to think that you're going to trust yourself overnight, especially if you feel like that's not realistic for you right now. That is totally normal. And I will say, I feel like we live in a society, especially if you are a woman watching this video, where we are made to feel like we need to depend on other things. We need to answer to other people for our survival. We are not conditioned to rely on ourselves first. And I want to be clear that building trust with yourself and hyper independence are two different things. I will never preach hyper independence to you. I think it is unhealthy and it is unsafe and it's a toxic thing to do. But there's a difference between hyper independence and relying on yourself and having trust in yourself, okay? People who trust in themselves are still able to ask for help. People who trust in themselves are still able to have support systems and all that around them and use resources, because you can trust yourself and use your noodle, okay? You don't have to depend on yourself and then be like, I will not accept help. That's not where we're going with this at all. I want to talk about that today because it has been, I think, one of the most powerful things I've been able to give myself. It's just trust. First of all, ask yourself, do you even trust yourself? Do you? Yes or no? What comes to mind first? Don't overthink it. And whatever your answer is, I want you to then think about someone. Hopefully you can think of someone, but who do you trust the most in this life? Like one person that you're like, yes, I trust them so much. That is my person. And I want you to think about the traits that they have and how can you give them to yourself. That's the first thing I want you to just reflect on, because that requires so little effort. It's just a little reflection. Really quick, let's talk about what I'm loving this week. Okay. What I'm loving this week, I'm not even going to lie to you. Girl, the Uggs that every girl is always trying to get at. Listen, I heard they're in stock. I'm going to put a link in the description. You can order them from where they're in stock. I literally waited like months to get those, and they have been my pregnancy shoes. I just leave the house in them. I love Uggs. Okay. I have always been an Ugg stan since probably 7th grade. I was walking around junior high with the chestnut brown OG Uggs in the middle of freaking Texas, where we had 85-degree winters, ankles sweating up a storm in those boots. And I could not give 2 fucks. I love Uggs. Summer, winter, rain or shine, you're going to catch me stomping around in those things. And I particularly have a lot of the platform styles. So shout out to my mother-in-law. She actually got me these and they have been the biggest blessing during this pregnancy. So I love Uggs. What can I say? But anyways, back to business. Okay. I have just been really inspired to talk more about trusting yourself. Particularly, I have a soft spot for my girls, my women, because I get your messages and I see a lot of you might be in situations that you feel you have to be in because said situation or said person is helping you make ends meet, survive, whatever. However, you staying in those situations may not be the safest option. And so this episode is kind of like what I would tell my sister. If she called me and said someone was acting a plumb fool and she needed to get the fuck out. Now, let's be real. I would bail her out. She would come live with me. But I can't have all of you living with me that might feel like you resonate with that situation. So we need to have a serious conversation about how to build trust with yourself so you don't have to feel like you need to be stuck in situations or with people who don't serve you or are dangerous. Okay. Having trust with yourself, you might not realize it, but it bleeds into so many areas of your life. If you don't trust yourself, you will put yourself in situations that are unsafe. You will be complacent to life because you think you have to stay at certain jobs or do certain things that make you unhappy. It can even affect your friendships, your relationships with other people or peers. And it's actually wild because this episode is kind of inspired by that situation for me, because I had a friend who I would say we are definitely just parting ways. I think the underlying issue is just this with this person is she does not trust herself, and it has bled into so many areas of her life, including our friendship. I'll give you the tea. I still think so highly of this person. Beautiful, stunning, talented, all the things. Like, I think the world of them. But I don't know if they see their potential. And it sucks when someone doesn't see their potential because you witness their self-sabotaging behaviors. And sometimes those behaviors bleed into the friendship or relationships that you have with people. So although this person is super talented, could have like several multi-million-dollar businesses if they really just sat down and focused for a second, they think that they need to get resources and things from men. Okay, it's one of those situations. Mind you, she is very beautiful and has gone through life knowing this, therefore attracting male attention. But I think that it's conditioned her to also look to males for what they can do for her. So I didn't really know this for a while, but she was getting, and this is, I am not judging because I don't care how you get $1. As long as you're safe, I don't care. Okay? Get it how you live it. I don't knock a hustle. But I didn't realize until recently that basically this person was getting her bills paid through weird men. Okay? And that is fine. But it's also a bit unsafe. Like, let's be real. It was putting her in weird situations, inappropriate situations, uncomfortable situations. And I had never really had a friend who was, you know, kind of dealing with that. So I tried to empower her by investing in what I knew she was good at. So I would say, hey, let's work on a project together. If you could do this for me, like, let's see if we can work something out. We've worked together in the past before and it was great. But my way of trying to help her see her potential was to invest in her businesses, while she would also go on dates with weird guys and have to talk to weird guys all day. Like, okay. But again, it just like makes me sad because I'm like, you don't have to do those things. I know you don't want to. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think she wanted to do those things, but I felt like she was putting herself in situations she didn't have to be in. And if she trusted herself more to lean into her businesses, it would be fine. The only reason that matters in this story is because I started to see that she looked at all her relationships as, what incentive do I get from this? And this is really sad for me to realize, because then I also had to accept that I don't think we were ever really friends like I thought we were. I thought we were just good friends. I think, though, because I was investing in her businesses and wanted to see her win and, you know, was also willing to help her get other opportunities just so she would learn, like, you don't have to associate with weird men to get where you want. I think she saw that like a bulb went off in the wrong way. And I hate saying that like I was getting taken advantage of, but I'm being honest. After reflecting on that whole situation, I really do feel like I was being taken advantage of and just didn't realize it in time. And basically what made me realize that this girl was never trying to be friends with me, she was just trying to like get something out of the friendship, was she basically backed me into a corner to Venmo her $200. I'm not kidding. And $200, like, to some people might be nothing. It's not about the money. It was about the principle. It was just a really weird, shitty situation. And essentially, she kind of pulled a card on me that she would pull with her guys, where she was like, I'm not going to be able to get home if I don't have the money. So like, what am I going to do? Leave the girl stranded? I sent her the $200 and that was that. But I realized after that this was now going to be like this is going to be our thing. And that made me really sad. But again, I only tell that story to say, I think all of that could have been avoided. Our friendship could have gone completely different if she had a different perspective of herself and trust in herself. And I realized a lot of people probably do that. It was kind of like the last straw where I realized this girl does not fuck with me in any way if I cannot help her or give her anything. And so I kind of like vocalized, like, I will help you this time, but this is putting me in a really awkward situation, and never heard from her again. And I realized I got my answer from that. At this age, I can't have like a tiff with someone and not try to understand like what's going on with them. There's no bad feelings. It's like, I wish you saw yourself the way your friends, your real friends see you, so that you wouldn't have to miss out on like good friendships, good romantic partners, good opportunities, and a good fucking life. But like, you don't trust yourself, and you keep thinking everyone around you has to give you the life that you want. So you subject yourself to being around creepy ass men when you could have a beautiful romantic relationship with someone else. And it all goes back to the fact that you don't trust yourself to get there, and you think someone else has to do it for you. Ew. So let's get into it. How are we going to build trust with ourselves? Starting small, we have to learn how to follow through on simple, small tasks with ourselves. I say this is small, but this is also like massive, okay? It depends how you define small. But I'll go back to my example where I knew I wanted to become my own boss, and I was really just not feeling the 9-to-5 life. I wanted to pursue things that made me feel something and happier, and I wanted more control over my time and my life. So I obviously couldn't do that overnight. I didn't even trust myself to do that in the beginning. I just knew this was something I wanted. Kind of how I started to develop trust with myself in the very beginning of my journey with wanting to become a full-time content creator was I started to show up for myself in small ways. It was small but mighty. I will say that. And I think that you should look at that part of your journey the same way. Even if it is a small thing you're showing up for, it is a mighty thing that you're doing, building trust with yourself and doing it consistently. So for me, that meant I was going to figure out how to take advantage of the time I did have and show up for myself in those windows. So if I had to work from 9 to 5, then I would be doing what I wanted to do from 7 to 9. Okay, whatever. And on the weekends, I definitely would block out time to invest in my passion projects, and I would do that consistently. Rain or shine. At that time, I was living in Kansas City, so I literally would be out in the cold. God bless my husband. He would be out there taking little pictures of me in 20-degree weather, trying to be cute with no jacket on. Like, he was really out there helping me make this dream happen. And I think also that goes back to like saying you can show up for yourself, but you don't have to be hyper independent. You can still ask people for help. And I am just so grateful to him for that. But we were out there hustling, okay? I had a 9-to-5 job, but my weekends were stacked. I would get up at like 6 a.m. I would steam 3 outfits. I would plan the locations I wanted to go to, and then I would do my hair and makeup. And by about 10 a.m., AJ was up and ready to go. He would go drive with me to downtown Kansas City. We lived about like 30 minutes away, and we would stand in the frigid cold, and he would take pictures of me every single weekend. And we would do those 3 outfits, and those 3 outfits would get me about a week's worth of content. And then we would do it all over again the next weekend. And that's just how we started to show up in terms of building this little dream that I had. And mind you, I had nothing to show for at the time. I had no money coming in, but everyone had to start somewhere. And that's how I started. And over time, I started to get little opportunities here and there. But most importantly, over time, I showed up for myself and knew I could be my own boss because I was able to develop this structure and a schedule with myself. And I was able to make things happen. And I started to see the fruition of that by getting brands interested in me, even when I had like 300 followers. But it started with me following through on things in a small way. So eventually, after developing some trust with myself and following through on small, simple tasks, I feel like I was able to trust myself with bigger things. And so for me, the big thing that I trusted myself with was quitting my 9-to-5 job. when I felt like I was comfortable to do that and completely lean into social media. However, I would not have been able to do that if I hadn't built a little bit of trust with myself with showing up in other ways. So like I said, it was a gradual thing, but eventually I said, okay, I feel like I'm at a place now where if I can really lean into this and give myself 8 hours to focus on content every single day, I could grow so much. I could just expand the opportunities that I have. I could do so much more. So that was kind of the agreement in my head, was like, okay, if we're going to quit a 40-hour-a-week job, we're going to have to lean into this project 40 hours a week too. Now I was able to take more of an aggressive leap. And I think that in doing so, you are literally forced to build even more trust with yourself, because baby is like, okay, we jumping off the cliff now. We really doing this. We are quitting our job. That's a big deal. And at this point, it's like, it's on you. You have nobody to blame if it doesn't work out. You have to know how to save yourself. And here's the thing, trusting yourself and taking a leap of faith, it doesn't mean you're not gonna fail. I failed so many times, but every time I failed, I was able to get up. And that's the point, is knowing how to trust yourself means you're inevitably going to fail, but you trust yourself enough to not stay down. You will get back to it. You will get back to work. You will figure out what does work. And you guys know I love a good failure because it tells you what's not working, so you get closer to the solution, right? Don't be a big baby about failing. Like, get over it, okay? You get nowhere by not troubleshooting. That is just logique, okay? And I'm talking to my past self because, like, I get perfectionism is a curse, okay? Hear me. It is a curse. But I just had enough trust in myself to know we're not going to stay down long. We'll figure this out. Because I trust myself to never walk through a 9-to-5 door again. It was not an option for me, okay? The only option I have is to figure it out. Another way to build trust with yourself is to stop with the enablers around you. And this requires a level of self-awareness and reflection that I don't know everybody's capable of having. I'm just going to be honest with you. Some of us have mommies and daddies who they will get you through whatever you need to, but is that keeping you stuck? Is that keeping you comfortable? Some people have boyfriends or husbands that do it. I don't know your situation, but sometimes we can have people who are our support system that are honestly keeping you stuck. I actually met someone who was telling me that she'd recently met her dad not too long ago. Her biological father. She had gone her whole life not knowing her dad. And I guess he didn't know about her. And so it was like a super emotional experience. But she realized she had a sister, and she and the sister could not be more different. The dad was explaining how he feels like he made a mistake with the sister because he gave her everything that she needed. So now she's on her own in the real world, and she's having a really hard time standing on her own 2 feet. And she feels like she needs to keep being rescued, but he's like, I can't do that. He's trying to like kick her out the nest. Meanwhile, the girl that I was talking about who had just met her dad, she is like her own boss, has her own business. She's doing her own thing. And it's just interesting, nature versus nurture, right? Two sisters who just didn't grow up in the same circumstances but have the same dad are having completely different experiences in life because of those circumstances. And so she was telling me how it's just been interesting to learn more about her sister and how they're just so opposite. And like, she loves learning about her sister, but she's like, I would never do half the things that she's doing. It's just like funny. But I think there's a lot of truth and understanding that our enablers can be the ones holding us back, even though 9 times out of 10, they're just doing it out of love. So I call our enablers crutches, okay? You don't need the crutches anymore. It's time to walk. It's time to hobble. Even if you got to hobble, get off the crutches, okay? You will never learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, no pun intended, if you don't let go of the crutches, okay? But again, I think that is one of the hardest things to be honest with yourself about, because that means you have to make the decision to say, you know what? I'm going to do this without you, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to try. I also want to say, our crutches might not be the enablers who deep down love us. Our crutches might be the toxic job that we are scared to get out of. The crutches might be the abusive boyfriend who is basically holding the money hostage. Okay? These are real situations that people have to go through, and I don't take them lightly. And I'm not at all preaching to you that you will get out of that overnight, but you can get out of that. There are resources, there are things, there are many options that you have. And I want to be a soundboard and a reminder to anyone who resonates with that you are not stuck in a situation that you think you have to be in, especially if it's putting you in danger. You don't have to stay in that situation. There are options to get out. This episode is brought to you by No CD. All right, besties, let's get real for a second. So you know how I didn't realize I had ADHD for 30 years because my experience didn't match the stereotypes? Well, the same thing happens with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. Stereotypes of OCD make a lot of people think it's all about needing to be really clean or organized. But in reality, OCD is totally debilitating and can look like disturbing, unwanted thoughts that conflict with your values or fears that seem impossible to shake. And then physical or mental behaviors that you feel like you have to do to try to get rid of the anxiety from those thoughts and fears. It's not a personality quirk or being tidy. It's a serious condition that can completely consume someone's life. But it doesn't have to stay that way, because the good news is OCD is highly treatable. And that's why I want to tell you about No CD. No CD offers virtual therapy for OCD with licensed therapists who specialize in OCD, so they know how to provide the right kind of help for what you're going through. Every No CD therapist is trained in exposure and response prevention, or ERP. It's a type of therapy that was specifically designed for OCD, and it's considered the gold standard treatment. No CD also accepts many major insurance plans and offers always on support between sessions, so you're never alone. If you think you might be struggling with OCD and want to learn more about therapy with No CD, go to nocd.com and schedule a free 15-minute call with their team. That's nocd.com to learn more and book a free 15-minute call. Trust me, bestie, reaching out for help is one of the biggest ways you can show up for yourself. So, to my next point, a big part of finally building trust with yourself is being able to remove any external control that other people or things have on you, right? So, maybe if you're growing up and your parents are providing for you, but maybe there's like some unhealthy dynamics going on, they have that control over you right now. Okay, we love our parents, but sometimes that can be a toxic dynamic too. Going back to romantic relationships, sometimes you can be in a romantic relationship where you're basically sharing assets or whatever, and you feel like you have to stay in a relationship that doesn't serve you, because how else are you going to survive, right? But once you get to a place of showing up for yourself enough and knowing that you can get yourself out of that situation and you can figure it out, you will then learn that you can take that control back and give it to yourself. So once you get to that point, you're going to take the control back and do just that. Give it to yourself. So for me in my situation, I'm thankful that it wasn't something that was like super unsafe. It might have been toxic, but leaving my 9-to-5 job gave me control over my time. That's what I got back. And that was huge, because I think in this lifetime, if you can say you have control over your time, you have an asset. If you ask me, you have a luxury. And so I was able to have 40 plus hours a week dedicated to something I felt passionate about. Didn't have any money, didn't have anything to show for it, but I had something that I didn't previously have. And not all incentives are monetary. Understand that too. And I knew at that phase of my life, time was what I needed. And then the money would come later. I wasn't worried about that. I just knew that would happen later, but I couldn't do it without some time first. So I was able to give control back to myself by controlling my schedule and then leaning into social media more. And what do you know? Here we are. It kind of worked out. And then I'll say this: in order to build trust with yourself, you have to fully commit to filling your cups consistently. Once you've developed a little bit of trust with yourself, that's a big part of it too, is knowing that you have to invest in yourself. For me, for me pregnant, I don't know what that looks like just yet, but when I quit my job, investing in myself looked like taking care of myself. So I would at least get to the gym. I felt like the gym was such a big deal for me in terms of building trust with myself because I had to stay consistent with it. And it was just like something I wanted to commit to because if you feel good, you think better. Like we know the drill. Working out has so many incentives, right? And I felt like if I wanted to be my own boss and be sharp in that way, I had to take care of myself on a physical level. So I would make that time to go to the gym, and I would also be sure to have time to do like whatever self-care I needed to do. Unplugged hours, all of that. But if you can't fill your cups, you then can't go out and be the best version of yourself because you're depleted, right? So part of trusting yourself is knowing that you will also be the one to take care of yourself. I think that goes hand in hand, especially now that I've gone through the entrepreneur journey. When I became my own boss, I realized that no one was going to take care of me. So a big part of learning how to trust myself was knowing that I could take care of myself. And what that looked like for me was going to the gym, surrounding myself with friends and positive people in general, working with people that I looked up to, having days where I was unplugged, spending time with AJ. Like I had to fill my cups too. And then that made me show up better for other things. And it also made me trust myself that I could take care of myself and I could still go after the things I wanted. So fill up the cups, girls. But this is kind of the snapshot of what I used when I was trying to learn how to build trust with myself. And to this day, having trust in myself is one of the best superpowers I could give myself because I can go through life and do difficult things knowing I've got it. I've got it. Even if I don't, even if I fail, I'll get there because I trust myself and I've developed a system to know that I refuse to accept anything else. All of that is a choice you get to make. And when you trust yourself, you have a level of control in your life that no one can take from you. You don't have to be dependent so much on other people and things, and you can move through life knowing you got your own back at the end of the day, if need be. But it is still okay to lean on others, ask for help, have support systems, all of that. But also know if someone tried to pull a crazy one on you, you good because you have your own back. Okay? Develop trust with yourself to get things done, to get where you want in life because no one's going to do it for you. That is the bottom line. That is the reality. So I hope this helps. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments anything you've done to help build trust with yourself. I would love to hear and read those. Rate this podcast 5 stars, leave us a thumbs up, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I'll see you guys next week.